bitch drive a all white rank. Couldn't hit it if you niggas had aim. Lanes can't call and you lame. You had it and you lost it, all the shame. I can buy a Billy, don't talk to me. For a show 150, don't talk to me.
As we all know, yesterday was the NBA draft, and all of my lottery team fans out there, we were all sitting back hoping our team wouldn't fuck up the pick that the basketball gods blessed us with. And for the most part, a lot of teams picked well, and some teams fucked up. Some teams traded up when they shouldn't have. Some teams traded down when they shouldn't have. But today we're going to discuss the winners and the losers of the 2019 NBA draft. But before we go any further with this video, make sure you drop a like down below, comment your opinions, and also hit the subscribe button if you have not done that, and hit that bell so you can be notified after every single video that I post. So without further ado, let's start off with the winners of the NBA draft. Now let's start off with the team that was probably the biggest winners of the NBA draft, and that is the team that had the #1 selection in the New Orleans Pelicans. Now obviously Zion was a no-brainer, but just think about everything that has happened for the Pelicans over the past few months. I mean, Anthony Davis demands a trade, makes it public, makes it known to the basketball world that he's only going to re-sign with the Lakers or the Knicks, so that decreases his trade value and decreases what the Pelicans can get for him in return from the trade. And then also you can consider the fact that they get the first overall pick in the draft lottery, a surprise that shocked even the New Orleans Pelicans themselves. I mean, it was a shocker beyond the realm of possibility. And then we get to the NBA draft after they've traded Anthony Davis, and they get Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, Josh Hart, and the 4th pick in return. Draft night arrives, and who did they give with the first pick? Obviously Zion Williamson, the overall #1 consensus pick for the NBA draft this year. They get Zion, and then they trade the 4th pick with the Atlanta Hawks with the 8th and the 17th pick, in a move that I honestly like, especially when you consider the results, because with the results they ended up getting a center in Jackson Hayes, and with the 17th pick that they also acquired from the Atlanta Hawks, they picked up Nickeil Alexander-Walker. And I really love that trade. I really do love the trade, because honestly I like the fact that they were able to get a center, because they did need to fill up that big man position, and Jackson Hayes fits the defensive mentality that I think Alvin Gentry is going to try to instill in these players. I mean, think of all the defensive pieces that they have on this team and in the potential starting lineup: Lonzo Ball, Drew Holiday, Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson, and also Jackson Hayes. That is a great defensive lineup for this team. Now the spacing, obviously that is going to be a huge problem, but they all are young, they all have time to develop, and I don't think the Pelicans are in win now mode. And with a team like this, you do need time for these players to develop into the potential that the organization wants them to reach. So great draft for the New Orleans Pelicans. They picked up 3 players that I think have some really high potential. Obviously Zion, Jackson Hayes, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker made some great moves in this draft. Now the other winner that you could debate is probably the second biggest winner, and potentially even the first biggest winner with how all these players shape out. That is the Atlanta Hawks, because the Atlanta Hawks traded the 4th pick with the Phoenix Suns, and we'll get to the Suns later on in this video, but with the 4th pick they ended up getting DeAndre Hunter. That was a really good pickup for the Atlanta Hawks. I mean, they have needed a forward that can play on the defensive side of the ball and can get his own on the offensive side as well. Now honestly, I'm gonna be real with you guys. Looking at how he played in college, I'm not going to say he's a bad offensive player, but I just don't know how his offensive game is going to translate to the NBA level. But regardless, he is a really good defender, and when you have a team that has a lineup that consists of a player like Trae Young, who defensively could be a liability and one of the biggest liabilities in the NBA, especially on one-on-one defense, I do think you need to surround him with really capable defenders, and players such as a DeAndre Hunter, they are very valuable in that scenario. And also with the 10th pick, they ended up picking up Cam Reddish. Now, I'm not too high on Cam Reddish, but I do think this is a really good scenario for him. They all are young, they all have time to develop, and the Atlanta Hawks, they have one of the best young cores in the league. Now they have a core that consists of Trae Young, Kevin Huerter. They also have DeAndre Hunter, Cam Reddish, John Collins. I mean, obviously we haven't seen DeAndre and Cam Reddish play, but if they live up to just at least some of that potential that we know they have in them, that instantly puts the Atlanta Hawks among the top of the conversation for one of the best young cores in the entire league. And the Atlanta Hawks, they should be really proud of themselves, because this rebuild process, it has finally come to a point that we can look at it and say, damn, they did this pretty fast. And a lot of props goes to that front office in Atlanta. Now that wraps up the winners of this video. I know it's only 2 teams, but honestly a lot of other teams, they just really made some smart selections with their pick, but I don't really want to highlight them because they didn't really move up or down or make significant moves that I really want to talk about. Now I do want to shout out the Minnesota Timberwolves, because I do think picking up Jared Culver was a very, very smart selection for them. They do need someone at that guard position that can help not only Karl Anthony Towns, but Andrew Wiggins as well. And I definitely think that Jared Culver was a very smart selection. Either him or Kobe White. I was really confused on who they were going to get, but a really good selection for the Timberwolves. So just a small shout out to them. But other than that, let's move on to the losers of this draft, because I got a lot to talk about for these 3 remaining teams. Now before I get into the Washington Wizards fuck up tonight, I'm not going to spend too much time on pronouncing the rookie that they drafted's name. I'm just going to say Rue. Now one could make the argument that the Washington Wizards already lost on the draft lottery night when they slid 3 spots down. But when it comes to the player that they drafted in Rue, from what I've read, the Washington Wizards didn't have a meeting with him. They didn't sit down with him. They didn't even do anything with him before the draft even started. And unless his defense, his playmaking, and his shooting improves, sure, if all that happens, it could be a home run. But when you consider that Nasir Little was still on the board, Cam Reddish was still on the board, PJ Washington was still on the board, Sakau Dembuya was still on the board, that just blows my mind that they didn't go with any of those other players, because I think there were more better options than the player that they took. But the rookie signing was not the only problem that the Washington Wizards had that night. The other problem that they had was that I do not understand for the life of me why they did not trade Bradley Beal. Because as a Chicago Bulls fan who's pretty pleased with the Kobe White pick, by the way, but I've seen this type of situation go down before. It happened just a few years ago in Chicago with Jimmy Butler. He's a player that should have probably been traded a year or 2 earlier, but because they waited and they wanted to see what they could do with John Wall and Bradley Beal, or in Jimmy Butler's case, Jimmy Butler, Rajon Rondo, and Dwayne Wade, then they failed, and now they're in a scenario where they're paying a player that realistically speaking should not even be on the roster. And for Jimmy's case, he wasn't even overpaid. He hasn't even gotten paid yet. Bradley Beal has gotten paid. They need to trade him immediately, because it makes no sense to be paying him and John Wall, who's not even probably going to play till 2021, all that money just so they cannot make the playoffs. Yes, I do not believe the Wizards will be making the playoffs anytime soon unless they make some monumental trade that's going to drastically change their roster without giving up Bradley Beal or John Wall, which absolutely nobody sees happening. They needed to trade Bradley Beal tonight, and the fact that they couldn't get that job done is ridiculous. I'm just saying, I think a top 5 pick definitely could have been traded for Bradley Beal. Now obviously not the top 3 picks, but that 4 to 7 spot could have been traded for Bradley Beal, and it's a disappointment that they couldn't get the job done. Sure, some teams probably could have said no, who knows, but it's still a loss, and it's a huge disappointment for the Washington Wizards front office. Now me, for the life of me, I don't understand what the Cleveland Cavaliers are doing. They selected Darius Garland with the 5th pick, and I'm not saying he's a bad player. He's a pretty good player. But let's just analyze something real quick. Darius Garland is a 6'2" point guard. That sounds pretty familiar for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Oh, it's because last year they also took a 6'2" point guard by the name of Colin Sexton. I don't get why they went back-to-back years selecting almost the same exact player. Now sure, you could debate their play styles, but regardless, these are 2 players that are point guards, the same size, and what are you going to do? Are you going to trade one of them? Maybe they're going to package one of the players for Kevin Love's trade? I don't know, and honestly, I don't care. This was not a great selection for the Cleveland Cavaliers in terms of a fit, because if they plan on running a lineup that consisted of Darius Garland and Colin Sexton, that doesn't sound very good. Sure, offensively, they could probably put up some really good numbers, but defensively, that sounds just like CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard, because both of them don't really look like great defenders, and to have both of them in the starting lineup when both of them are potentially going to be undersized, or should I say one of them, because from what I saw last year, sure, Colin Sexton has some athletic burst, but he's not some great defender, and Darius Garland is a mediocre defender at best. He is not a great defender from what I've seen in college and from the reports that I've seen as well. So defensively, that doesn't sound like a pretty good backcourt. And by the way, who's going to be facilitating the ball? Because none of these guys are really great passers, so I don't see them getting their teammates involved. So good luck trying to find someone who's going to be able to do that between these two. And honestly, I just don't get what the Cleveland Cavaliers are doing. Not saying that the player they selected is bad, and like I said, if they're trying to package one of them for a Kevin Love trade, I understand. But as of now, I'm giving them a fat L for this move. Now, the biggest L of the entire NBA draft has to go to the Phoenix Suns. For one, let's start off with who they selected with the 11th pick. I mean, think about it. They traded down in the draft a top 10 pick for the 11th pick just so they could select Cameron Johnson, a player that was predicted to be a late first round pick or a second round pick. Does that make any type of sense? This is a player that you probably could have gotten later on in the draft without trading down. And what's even more confusing here is that what have we talked about the Phoenix Suns needing over the past 2 years since they lost Eric Bledsoe? Oh yeah, that's right, a point guard. They are the exact same team that was probably pretty disappointed that they couldn't get Lonzo Ball a few years ago in the draft. And they go out there and they select another small forward for the third year in a row. And what even annoys me here is that they're not even going after D'Angelo Russell, according to the reports that I have seen, which just makes them even more stupid in their front office. And not only did they select a small forward, but Kobe White was still on the draft board. You picked Cameron Johnson over Kobe White when you could have had them both in the first place. You could have solved your problem for the point guard position and still gotten the player that you wanted. It is just so ridiculous how stupid this front office is, and it's going to blow my mind if Devin Booker does not want out within the next year. Honestly, it's gonna blow my mind. This organization has been a symbol of mediocrity, have been a symbol of ineptitude, and they deserve to stay like that if they're gonna keep making these kind of idiotic moves. It is ridiculous, it is insane, and what makes it even crazier is that they're probably going to be in this same exact position next year. A lottery team that probably picks another small forward instead of solving the biggest problem that they have, which is the point guard position. But regardless, you guys, that concludes my video. Yeah, I went on a little rant on the Phoenix Suns because I'm just so sick and tired of this organization. This organization should not exist anymore in the NBA. I honestly do believe we should cut some teams out of the league for the amount of ineptitude that we've seen from them over the past few years, honestly, in the existence of their franchise, and the Phoenix Suns fit that exact bill. But you guys in the comment section, let me know your opinions. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. Hit the bell to be notified. Follow me on Twitter and on Instagram. Those links are down below in the description box. This is your boy Young Mustard signing out. If you're a winner, congrats. If you're a loser, then fuck off. Have a great day. Peace.